Have you ever dealt with that nagging knee or lower back pain that no matter what you do just refuses to go away? Well, the answer might not be where you're looking. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this surprising muscular battle that's happening in your own thighs, and it could be the real culprit behind it all. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about this hidden tug of war. Then we'll get to know the muscles involved. After that, we'll see exactly how they battle for your pelvis, put a number on the risks, and finally, look at how to get them working together in harmony. So, let's start with the question that I know so many of us have asked ourselves. Why does this pain just keep coming back? Well, a lot of the time, the answer is hiding in plain sight. It's in a constant hidden battle between two of the most powerful muscle groups you have. You know that feeling? It's not just in your head, I promise. It is a very real physical thing that happens when your quadriceps and your hamstrings get out of sync. Instead of being teammates, they start pulling in opposite directions, creating this constant, low-level conflict that puts a ton of stress on your joints and your spine. Okay, so to really get what's going on, we have to meet the two main players in this drama. And honestly, the easiest way to think about them is like a car's accelerator and its brake. Your quads are the gas pedal, and your hamstrings, well, they're the brakes. Let's just quickly break down their jobs. On the front of your thigh, you've got the quadriceps. They're the engine that straightens your knee, for kicking a ball, standing up, that kind of thing. Then on the back, you've got the hamstrings. They do the exact opposite. They bend the knee, and, this is so important, they act as the braking system to slow you down and keep you from getting hurt. But wait, the story gets a little more complex than just your knee. See, both of these massive muscle groups are what we call two-joint muscles. And what that means is they don't just cross your knee, they also cross your hip joint. They literally attach right onto your pelvis, which gives them a huge amount of control over your posture and the stability of your lower back. And this right here brings us to the absolute heart of the problem. Because they both connect to your pelvis, they are locked in this constant battle to control its position. So when one side starts pulling too hard, the entire system just gets thrown completely out of whack. Here's a great way to picture it. Imagine your pelvis is like the main pole of a tent. To keep that pole standing up straight and stable, you need perfectly balanced tension on the guide ropes, right? Well, your quads are the ropes pulling from the front, and your hamstrings are the ropes pulling from the back. So what happens when they're not balanced? If those front ropes, your quads, get too tight, they literally yank the pelvis forward. That's called an anterior tilt, and it creates that deep, painful arch in your lower back. On the flip side, if the back ropes, your hamstrings, are too tight, they pull the pelvis backward into a posterior tilt, flattening out your lower back. Both of these are bad news, and they put so much strain on your spine. But this imbalance isn't just about bad posture or a dull ache. It actually creates a really serious and measurable risk for a major injury, especially to your knee. And there is a very specific number we need to talk about. 60%. What on earth does this number mean? Well, this is basically the magic number for keeping your knees safe. It's the minimum strength your hamstrings need to have compared to your quadriceps. This chart shows you exactly what I'm talking about. It's the hamstring to quadriceps strength ratio, or HQ ratio. Just think of your quad strength as 100%. Well, your hamstrings, your brakes, have to be at least 60% as strong to safely control all that power from the quads. If that ratio drops any lower, boom. Your risk of a serious knee injury, like a devastating ACL tear, it just skyrockets. Okay, so if just building brute strength in one muscle isn't the answer, what is? How do we fix this whole mess? The goal is to bring back the balance. And in the world of Pilates, they call this controlled antagonism. It's not about making one muscle win the fight. It's about teaching them to work together again. This table sums it all up just perfectly. We want to get away from this state of conflict, where the quads and hamstrings are basically fighting over your pelvis. And we want to move toward this ideal state of cooperation, where they're balanced, they hold a neutral pelvis, and they coordinate their actions to protect your knee. So, let's see what this actually looks like in practice. There's a classic Pilates exercise called the single leg stretch, and it is a perfect example of how you can train this kind of functional harmony. Just look at what's happening here. First, the core is totally locked in, nice and stable. Then, as one leg pushes out using the quadriceps, the other leg is bending under the control of the hamstrings. They are being forced to do two different coordinated jobs at the exact same time. See? It's not a tug of war anymore, it's more like a choreographed dance. And this little cue here is absolutely critical. It points out a super common problem. When your glutes are weak, your hamstrings tend to take over, they overwork, and they get tight. So by consciously firing up your glutes, you make sure the right muscles are doing the right jobs, and that stops this whole harmful compensation pattern in its tracks. So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that a truly healthy, resilient body isn't about having the strongest quads or the most flexible hamstrings. It's about creating a balanced, functional dialogue between these two muscle groups, teaching them to have a conversation instead of a constant argument. And that really just leaves us with one final important question to think about. Your muscles are talking to each other all day, every day. The question is it a balanced conversation? Are you training them to work together in harmony, or are you accidentally letting one side shout down the other and win that tug of war?